What are the attacking ideas in the Giuoco Pianissimo? Have you ever wondered what makes the Giuoco Pianissimo such an interesting choice for chess players? This opening is all about strategic buildup rather than immediate attacks. It starts with the moves 1 pawn to e4, 1 pawn to e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, bishop to c5, and then pawn to d3. This setup allows white to take a more restrained approach compared to sharper variations. The main idea for white is to control the center gradually. Instead of rushing with the pawn to d4, the pawn to d3 supports the center and prepares for safe piece development. The focus here is on harmonious piece placement and king safety. White aims for flexible plans rather than direct attacks early on. One key attacking idea for white is to create kingside pawn breaks. Moves like pawn to f4 can help open lines for the bishops and queen. This allows white to apply pressure on black's position and potentially target the king. Another important concept is central control. White often prepares the moves pawn to c3 and later pawn to d4 to challenge black's central presence. The timing of pawn to d4 is crucial. White waits for the right moment to strike, avoiding premature exchanges that could relieving pressure on black. Piece maneuvering is also vital. White develops pieces to optimal squares, such as placing the bishop on b2 after a queenside fianchetto. This increases pressure on black's center and long diagonals. Knights and bishops work together to control key squares and restrict black's counterplay. White also looks to exploit weaknesses in black's setup. Black often prepares to play pawn to d5 and expand on the queen side with moves like pawn to a6 and pawn to b5. White needs to be alert for any overextensions in black's camp to launch targeted attacks. Typical plans for white can involve a slow build-up with moves like pawn to c3, knight to bd2, and rook to e1, preparing for a central break with pawn to d4. Alternatively, white can focus on kingside activity, advancing pawns like f4 and g4 to open lines against black's king. White must be ready to adapt, choosing between central, kingside, or even queenside operations based on black's responses. On the other hand, black aims to complete development and prepare for pawn to d5 to challenge white's center. Black also expands on the queen side to gain space and counter white's pressure. In the Giuoco Pianissimo, the attacking ideas revolve around patient, positional play. White uses strategic pawn breaks, especially on the king side with pawn to f4, and carefully timed central advances like pawn to d4. The goal is to build pressure through well-placed pieces and flexible plans, gradually undermining black's defenses. This leads to rich middle-game positions where understanding strategic themes is more important than memorizing forcing lines.